Good day and welcome to today's news cycle, which brings a sweeping wave of political upheavals, accountability battles, and decisions that may redefine national destinies from Latin America to Washington and across South Asia. We're witnessing pivotal moments where countries confront their fears, face their past, and struggle to shape their futures. These stories, though unfolding in different corners of the globe, share a common thread. Nations standing at crossroads, leaders under intense scrutiny, and societies pushed to question what kind of governance they truly want. And as we explore these developments, one critical question echoes through them all. When nations stand on the edge of transformation, do they choose courage or simply cling to their fears? Welcome to the Flash News. I am Star Smart. Let's begin. Chile is entering one of its most consequential electoral crossroads in decades, after far-right leader Jose Antonio Cast secured a place in the upcoming presidential runoff against communist former minister Jeanette Jara. Though Jara narrowly topped the first round vote with 26.8, Cast 23.9%, placed him in a powerful position heading into December's decisive showdown. Now, what makes this moment even more significant is the broader electoral map. Nearly 70% of votes cast in the first round went to right-leaning candidates, a signal that Chile may be steering towards its first far-right presidency in 35 years. Crime, insecurity, and fear have dominated the national mood. Rising murders, extortion networks, and migrant-linked gang activities have created deep anxiety. The very climate Cast has capitalized on through promises of harsh border measures and uncompromising security sweeps. Jara, on the other hand, has focused her campaign on economic protections, institutional reform, and addressing security without sacrificing rights. Yet she faces the stubborn barrier of enduring anti-communist sentiments. A political reality some analysts believe that Cast will convert into an advantage as conservatives coalesce behind him. Chile now stands at a tension point, a nation reckoning with fear, economic frustration, and its own democratic identity. And the question hanging over this election is whether the desire for security will push Chileans to embrace policies they might one day consider too heavy a price for safety. As Chile's political landscape tilts towards confrontation, another global political storm is brewing in Washington. We see that in the United States, President Donald Trump has taken a dramatic new stance, publicly urging House Republicans to vote in favor of releasing the remaining classified Epstein files tied to convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. Now, on his Truth Social platform, he declared, "We have nothing to hide." This marks a sharp reversal from his earlier hesitation, and it comes as lawmakers, even some within his own political circle, push to enforce the Justice Department to declassify the remaining documents. The move has opened an unusual rift. Key Trump allies like Marjorie Taylor Greene have broken step from other conservatives, insisting full transparency is long overdue. While House Speaker Mike Johnson has expressed reservations over releasing sensitive files that may re-traumatize victims. Yet Trump's decision is more than political theater. It is a gamble loaded with potential consequences, and the files could contain revelations that reshape public perception of the Epstein network and possibly cast new shadows over individuals across the political spectrum. By demanding their release, Trump positions himself as a champion of transparency while simultaneously stepping onto unpredictable terrain. The question now is not just what the files contain, but whether Trump's push for openness will strengthen his standing or unleash a wave of revelations that even he cannot control. When the president says we have nothing to hide, is he inviting truth or daring faith in this case? As Washington confronts old secrets, justice takes a far more drastic form in South Asia. A Bangladesh special tribunal has delivered a stunning and historic verdict. Sheikh Hasina, the longtime former prime minister who was ousted in 2024, has been sentenced to death after being found guilty of orchestrating crimes against humanity. The charges center on the brutal crackdown against a student-led uprising last year, violence that, according to the United Nations cited figures, killed up to 1,400 people as Hasina sought to cling to power. The tribunal ruled that she incited, ordered, and failed to stop the atrocities that unfolded under her government's authority. Hasina, now 78, fled to India and refused to return to stand trial, denouncing the proceedings as politically motivated. Her supporters echo that sentiment. Her critics argue that this verdict is the first genuine reckoning for decades of alleged abuses under her rule. The implications are enormous. A former head of government sentenced to death is an event that reverberates far beyond national borders. It threatens political unrest within Bangladesh, raises diplomatic questions for India, and forces the world to reconsider the line between justice and political retaliation. So now the world watches Bangladesh carefully, wondering whether this moment marks the beginning of accountability or escalation of a dangerous cycle of vengeance. We see that in punishing a former leader so severely by death, we wonder if Bangladesh delivering justice, or if it is simply preparing the ground for the next political vendetta. Well, in Mexico, tens of thousands of protesters, many of them members of the Generation Z, Gen Z, poured into the streets of Mexico City and cities across the country this weekend, voicing searing frustration at a government they say has failed to curb corruption and stem the devastating cycle of drug-fueled violence. What began as a broadly peaceful march morphed into tense and violent confrontations, a visceral expression of a generation's anger at impunity, insecurity, and the unrelenting bloodshed that claims so many lives each year. Caught in the crossfire were not just youth, but law enforcement. Mexico City's security chief, Pablo Vasquez, reported that 120 people were wounded, 100 of them police officers, some of whom required hospitalization, and protesters carried powerful symbols of resistance, including the pirate flag from the anime One Piece, and many invokes the memory of Mayor Carlos Manzo, who was recently assassinated after openly challenging organized crime. Now, while the movement identifies as youth-led and non-partisan, the government has pushed back hard. President Claudia Sheinbaum and her administration have accused political rivals of hijacking the protests, alleging that right-wing forces and even social media bots helped stoke the unrest. Well, let's take a look.
They say that young people were marching. In reality, there were very few young people. They violently pulled down some fences and broke windows. We say no to violence. If you have a disagreement, you have to demonstrate in a peaceful way.
Courtesy of Channel 4, we see demonstrators are demanding more than just protest. Their 12-point manifesto calls for sweeping reforms, a referendum to recall the president, deeper judicial overhaul, and urgent action against cartels. Now, this isn't just another demonstration. It is the raw, rising voice of a generation that insists enough. But when young people are pushed to the brink by corruption and violence, will their protest be a turning point, or will it spark something even more volatile? But these are the defining moments shaping political landscapes and challenging long-held assumptions across continents. As events continue to unfold, one thing remains certain, that the world is watching closely and the consequences will be felt far beyond today's headlines. Well, this has been the Flash News. Until next time, thank you for watching.